Hi,
Hello,
I'm Julian.
I am Tom.
Tom, I'm going to need more energy from you. We're Team Binge, and we are here to talk about Season 3, Episode 12, the finale of a little TV show called Ted Lasso. How you
I'm
feeling, Tom?
sad. I'm sad, man. So long farewell. All Fida saying goodnight.
Okay, I only speak English, so I don't understand what you just said, but this was the end that we're being told, allegedly. I'm believing it. I'm treating this as a series finale, and I'm going to speak of it as such. I think they wrapped it up nicely, so I'm not going to conjecture or think that there's anything more than this. If you've got theories, you can give them to me, but as of right now, I am assuming I am never going to see one more episode of anything Ted Lasso related. Is that
I
correct?
agree. I think, Ted Lasso was done, and who knows if they'll do spin-offs. That would be my only thing. Like, does Jamie and Roy get a spin-off? Does Keely and Barb get a spin-off? Something like that, I think, could happen. But Ted Lasso is no more.
I would assume in 20 years they'll resurrect it, just like they did with, I don't know, the Ninja Turtles or Transformers, anything else from our youth. So in 20 years they'll bring it back. But let's not focus on the negative. Tom, we had a lovely little finale. I felt, I'll spoil it here, that it was a nice wrap up. And we always touch you and get your temperature in the very beginning. So how'd you feel? How'd this leave you?
I'm just going to go, those will be doing finger guns for calling that Richmond was going to lose or win their game, but ultimately lose to Man City. I was happy in my prediction there. I thought it was great. I thought like all the little like stories or some stuff that probably went through a little bit too quick, like maybe with the Nate stuff, but I loved all the storylines that we got wrapped up. I liked the little montage they kind of did at the end where they kind of showed where all the characters ultimately kind of ended up. And everything kind of fit into a nice little bow. So I'm happy with where we landed. I think there was a bunch of bumpy bumpy moments throughout the season, but overall, fantastic show, and I love the way they wrapped it.
Yep, I did too. They didn't take any giant swings. A lot of things were as you predicted, which I really don't want to spend the next 4 hours of a podcast listening to you gloat. So if you can maybe channel your humble Jamie and not finger gun us the whole podcast, I think myself and the audience would appreciate it. But no,
Okay.
there were several things that happened, and I was like, dang it, Tom was right. Actually, everyone in the room that I was watching the finale with was like, I can't believe Tom was right on that. So we're constantly rooting against you, Tom, much like someone who's a level 10 Lasso should.
I guess let me ask you at the top here, what now that we've seen the entire series and you've been trying since season 1 to become more like Lasso. I think we started the series and you were at Lasso level 7. Have you digressed? Have you progressed? Where are we at now?
No, I've 100% digressed. I've gotten worse. I feel like season 1, I had some hope that I was going to be a forgiving, loving, positive person. But what that doesn't take into account is other people, how they affect your life, and that you're supposed to keep that positive attitude while other people are terrible. And so, no, I've digressed because I've let it's all the world's fault, but I've let the world ruin my positivity. So,
Is digress the right word? I think I might have used that incorrectly.
sure. Well, I know I haven't gotten better, so okay. I know that I'm negative level. I'm Julian level 12, which is the opposite of Lasso level 10. So
you're like Roy. You're asking yourself those questions. Have I changed? Am I a better man?
Right. I've got some questions about Roy's arc, but we can go this way and that. So let's kick it off. Tom and I are going to go through the episode, but we're going to do it in such a way that we're not here for 4 hours because this was an hour and 15 minutes of an episode, and we've gotten a lot of mail about people hating that I pout about the length of episodes. Well, guess what? I'm in charge, so I get to pout about whatever I want. Once again, Lasso level -12, so this is me coming at you. We find ourselves in the situation, I think they start with the announcers and we get the soccer of it all, which is last match of the season. and you spelled it out for us. Man City has to lose or draw, and Richmond has to win. And as soon as they were explaining that, I was like, oh no, Tom. I think Tom's going to be right on this, which you were. They do this very unkind thing, not to me or you, because I don't think either you or I really understood the Lasso and Rebecca of it all, but they give you a little misdirect in the beginning. How did you feel about the misdirect of Rebecca being in her robe and slippies and Ted coming out in his version of robe and slippies, which was just a Kansas City t-shirt? This guy doesn't own anything that doesn't have a location on it, by the way. It's either Kansas City or Richmond. How'd you feel? Did you feel tricked? Did you have a moment where you were like, wait, are they going to do this?
I mean, I don't know if it was a nod to the audience or a middle finger to the audience. Like, it was weird in its execution because there was nothing we got in the last episode unless you thought what Ted said to Rebecca was confessing his love, which I joked about. But the start of this one makes you think, did he actually do that? None of this really makes sense for them to be there and for like Beard and Jane here to show up. It's a funny scene, but I feel like it's almost just a bit too on the nose. Like, we had talked about that. The Ted Becca thing is, to me, has always kind of been a friendship and it's never been anything more. And I think they played a little bit too hard that angle a little bit too much. And
right. They definitely messed with the audience. They waved a bright red banana hammock in the audience's face. And they said, no, this is what you want, but you cannot have it. Which allows me to transition very nicely into Willis Beard, one Willis Beard entering the kitchen in some kind of something, I guess is the best way that I could describe it. He looked great, Tom. I would never shame anyone. Looked fabulous. I felt like he was on Will Ferrell's SNL corner a little bit there, but Jane is in a lovely blazer dress, and that is the excuse. There's been a gas leak, so they all stayed with Rebecca. I do think the show understood what people were rooting for, and they did mess with them. This was deliberate. Was it mean? No, but it didn't help anyone to see that banana hammock waved in their face. So,
yeah, for sure. I mean, that bright red banana hammock was a choice. I mean, mine are generally yellow.
Right. Yeah, I didn't have any issue other than the color. The color didn't make sense, especially since Richmond's colors are blue. So we find out on the television also during this that Rupert is going through the scandal. It's what you called in terms of, the issue with the assistant. And we then get confirmation here that Rebecca doesn't want to talk about it, but she does know that Ted has told her he's going home. So I think we understood that was going to be his truth bomb at the end of the last episode. We didn't have any qualms about it. And I think, honestly, this is the right mood for Ted. Although when Rebecca is begging him to stay, I did kind of think, they could make it work, these crazy kids over in the UK. Think about all that medicine. We go from there to the locker room, and Judge McAdoo is in session. Is this a callback to, the Christmas episode? Does he hold court during the Christmas episode? Or he's Santa during the Christmas episode? This is just Isaac wanting to be the captain over the locker room. And so he has these elaborate... I loved his outfit, by the way. He looked great.
Yeah, the big, massive wig that I guess... don't they actually still wear those in London courts and stuff?
I don't know. I only know... I have BritBox, so I watch a lot of British mysteries, and I think they do. So, yes, I'm going to go with... Yes, he stole that from a judge.
It's great, but I love him being in a chair on top of that main center area, and then Will Kitman is his bailiff, which I think is great.
Yes,
so fun.
All
scene.
rise, all rise, and we find out that Nate has taken a role. Nate's role is he is the assistant Kitman.
No, he's the assistant to the Kitman. So I like how they gave us an Office reference here.
Assistant to the regional manager. I loved it very much, and we got a return of the fancy boxes. So it seems like that pastime has not passed us by, which is lovely. Fines are being assessed, and the team is just having a grand old time. Not really practicing for what seems to be a very important game, but they're certainly having a lot of fun in that locker room.
This is the Lasso way. You got to have good times and not just all about football at this point. But I like how it cuts to Jamie where he's wearing that hat, and you think at a first glance it's the icon hat, but it actually says I, comma, cog, which was kind of weird when I first saw it. But I think later on the announcers give it a little bit more justification where he's like a cog in the gears. So he's just saying like he's just a single cog. I like that. I like that turnaround.
Sure, and he needs to throw his body on the wheels of progress because no, I'm sorry, that's a pamphlet I got. That never mind. We'll talk about communism later. Jamie adds money to the box, and there were no less than 800 callbacks in this episode, which was nice, but a callback to where Jamie just shoved shoved gum in the money box, and instead he adds more money. It feels like he pays his fine, and he knows this is going to Obasanya's restaurant and the class party, the end of the year pizza party, but Jamie adds more rather than gum, which is lovely. And Nate's fined £5,000. Did this seem excessive to you?
I mean, the guy's got Premier League soccer coach money at this point, so it doesn't seem too bad, and Nate didn't seem very upset about it, so I think it's good.
Do you think he keeps that kind of cash on him, those kind of pounds? I mean, 5,000 pounds is a lot of weight to be carrying around with you. I'm assuming that's money in terms of weight, right? No?
I think he just went over to the locker or the weight room and then just picked up a bunch of plates and brought it in and put it in his little box.
Classic. Yeah, 5,000 pound weights. That's not, I'm putting that up all the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. What? No, I'm not strong. All right. We're in the parking lot. We have a parking lot scare, which is Roy popping up on Keeley. This is a callback as well, I believe.
Mm-hmm. It's a very awkward kind of banter and conversation between them, and it's, I guess, Roy trying to rekindle this because they never really had their talk when Keeley kind of not rejected him, but didn't reciprocate his kind of emotional plea.
Yeah. His opener is, if you want to be scared, ask me what I'm thinking. And then it goes nowhere. I was like, all right, this is an interesting conversation. Let's move on, as the show does, to the coach's office where we have Trent, Ted, and Beard. And Trent, although the season is not over, has gotten close to finishing his book, and he's handing it out so that they can read it. So it is called The Lasso Way.
I love this little bit too, where Trent comes in and he's just such like a brilliant writer, editor. He's like, "Oh yeah, go ahead and take a look at the book. You can let me know if you have any criticisms. I won't take it out, but I'll be more than happy to tell you when you're wrong."
Yeah, yes, that is great. That is great. And there's nothing worse than I to this day, I couldn't stand it when I was a student, and to this day, I cannot watch someone read something I've written. It drives me insane. So I appreciated the moment where Trent's like, all right, I'm just going to get out of here. As
Beard's marking it up.
Yeah, pen whipping it. Roy would like to know how you know a girl likes you or not, which, okay. And we almost assemble the big double Ds, the Diamond Dogs. So close. But Roy is prone to do, says no. And so the Diamond Dogs are not. And I feel like this was good. They teased us with the Diamond Dogs, and then they really brought it back around at the end of the episode. So I liked I didn't need too much Diamond Dogs. There's a right level of Diamond Dogs, and that is 5,000 pounds worth of Diamond Dogs, I believe, if I'm using that standard of measurement right.
Yeah, I think you got it.
Rebecca's office, Higgins, Keeley, and Rebecca are hanging out, and Rebecca is not willing to talk about Rupert. And this is the arc of her. If we remember the first season, all she was doing was reading the tabloids. All she wanted to do is hate on him. And this, despite his misfortune, which, innocent until proven guilty. I don't know. We don't know if Rupert's done anything. But he's evil. And she doesn't want to talk about it, and she doesn't want to talk about who's replacing Ted. So we are setting the table for who is going to replace Ted. When we went into this episode, Tom, I believe did we say Coach Nate was going to be the successor? I believe that was our prediction.
I guess that was definitely my thought initially. It's just, okay, he's the wunderkind at West Ham, and West Ham had seemingly a great season, and he would just come back then and coach for Richmond. But I think if we would have maybe thought about it a little bit more, how they end this makes a lot more sense with Roy taking over and, Nate being the assistant coach along with Beard for Roy. I think it makes more sense.
I agree. So you would say in this situation, your prediction was incorrect?
Correct. I'm putting my finger guns back into my holsters.
Okay, thank goodness. There you go. Everyone who thought he was going to gloat the whole time, we got him. Bring out the gotcha girls.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. Hang the banner, baby. All right. Rebecca talks about selling the entire club. Okay, there was something that happened here. I don't know if we want to dive into this too much, but Higgins makes a comment about, hey, now that we're going to be open to some other league, we can make a lot of money if you sell partial amounts of the team. Did this make sense to you as a soccer fan? Because I got to be honest, when he was talking about it, I was like, I don't know how that makes sense. I guess I understand, like, selling shares of the team so other people can own them, like the Green Bay Packers. But I did not understand what he meant here and why this was brought up, other than from a story perspective, they needed to set the table of what the possibilities were.
Yeah, I think they touch on it a little bit later on when, like, Ted is asking all the questions about, like, all these different leagues and none of this makes sense. But we might have touched on it before, where the top 4 teams in the Premier League get a invitation into the Champions League, which is a club tournament for all teams in Europe, so not just in the UK. So that's a big moneymaker for these clubs because it's kind of like the top tier set of teams. So I think Higgins is just kind of implying, okay, we're going to be in that, plus, a good solid team in the Premier League. The club is going to be at kind of its highest worth, and is kind of spitting the idea with Rebecca, whether she's willing to sell a portion of the team and not full stake.
Got it. Okay. So they would be able to join the Championship League. Got it. Okay.
Champion League.
Yes, that's what I said. The Championship League. So they will be now a part of that and the Premier League. And
not confusing at all.
Sereno Soccer. So I do
like how we get an extra spit take here, though, right?
What was the spit take?
Higgins like actually says what the value of the team is, which was kind of funny because Higgins said the 50%, and then she didn't ask how much money it would be then. But then when she said, "What if I sell the whole team?" then Higgins gives the $2 billion line, and that's where she gives the spit take, which was good.
I got to be honest. I think I missed the spit take. I was so busy trying to count to $2 billion. And I still haven't gotten there. I did do some quick math, Tom. If she sells half of the team, it's probably worth $1 billion if she sells that. So
that math checks out.
I don't know if you knew this about me, but I'm a strong numbers guy. At practice, we get a final Roy whistle. It felt like if you were still able to do, when we all recorded our own ringtones, I don't know, feels like 30 years ago, I think I would want Roy shouting whistle as my text alert. I don't know if you can do that. Mine is still who let the dogs out, but if I knew how to change it, mine would be the Roy yelling of the whistle.
I can make that happen for you, buddy.
Okay.
I used to be that guy. I was like that tech nerd guy back in the day when people needed a ringtone. They'd come to me and ask. I'd cut the little clip and send it to people.
Got it. All right. Well, I will be, I guess, sending my phone over to you by courier so that you can fix the ringtone. This is their last practice, and a bell starts chiming in the stadium, and one of them's like, that's not ominous.
This whole exchange for Beard was just very, very great writing and very great delivery, where he's like, we'll set the scene here a little bit. So Roy walks by and gives him that weird look. He's like, what the F was that? And then he hears the bell and he's like, what the F is that? And then he sees everybody starting to start dancing and getting in motion. He's like, what the F is this? It's just so great. So great.
It was all wonderful. I like Roy trying to be secretive, but leaning into it way too heavily. The team starts to sing, and I believe this is the song from The Sound of Music.
Correct. This is a namesake of the episode, So Long Farewell. And I think it's very fitting, right? Because it's like a callback to the Bye 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 sequence we had, I think it was last season, where the team did that choreographed dance. Yep. And we all know Ted's affinity for musicals, so very fitting and brilliantly performed.
It was great. There's a quick cut where Roy is singing along, like he's not a part of the performance, but he is singing along like a song and dance coach would. Danny Rojas gets the end solo, which was lovely. They say goodbye. And when Ted says, thank you, that was perfect, I think Beard is wiping tears from his eyes.
Yep.
The team is so pumped by their performance. It was awesome. I just like the idea of these actors having to, like, legitimately spend time to choreograph a Sound of Music performance.
There was a little bonus content that was available. I could touch on at the end of the pod, but it was like a 7-minute like little video of just season 3 and all the actors just kind of loving on each other and saying how much they love the journey and all that deal. But they showed specifically a lot of the cast members going to the studio and like sitting around a mic and singing the song and doing the choreography in front of like a blue screen. It was super funny.
Yes, it was wonderful. And it will be when I watch it, because I haven't. But I agree with you. It was wonderful. I'm picturing it now. We have a shot of Keely going through the facility. I think she runs into Nate. She gives last day presents to Beard and Lasso. And once again, a callback. She walks into the locker, does her thing. No one's naked, unfortunately. We were all disappointed. And Jamie then brings up that Nike is having him go to Brazil, and he needs a publicist, so he's taking Keely, which leads to the conflict of this episode that I probably felt was the only thing that was out of place. But what are your thoughts on Jamie and Brazil and Nike and someone whose name starts with W and ends with W?
I like this setup. Like, it was kind of interesting to see Jamie actually kind of open himself up to Keely here a little bit, and Keely seemed very receptive of it, which I think was, I don't know, seemed like a little bit out of place because of the conversations that kind of happened later. But I do love this scene because this whole little bit is a oneer. So starting with Keely going into the office and then ending with Roy and Jamie going to kind of grab a beer, it was all one shot. So it was well performed.
Yeah, no, I'm always looking for a oneer. That's good. The pub is where Rebecca and her mom have met. I felt like they did do a good job of, they're like, listen, if a person showed up on this show for 5 seconds, guess what? They're showing up for the finale. So we're going to give them some screen time. Rebecca's mom is here. We talk about the psychic Tish, and she apparently knows who's going to win. She, of course, will reveal this after the win, just to let you know whether or not she was right or wrong. Rebecca brings up selling the club, and the best part of this was May and Rebecca's mom making the comment about, oh, they're all so sad, even though they've been given everything and their life has been cush. I thought that was great.
Yeah, for sure. And I like how the pub guys then kind of come in and then offer to pay for the meal. So this is that first little bit that we see. I mean, is this the show is playing with us with the idea that she's going to be a quote unquote mother from the psychic as being like the mother of the club, right? Like, did you kind of see that as
no?
Like, obviously,
I did not see that as a through thread. That's probably not the right phrase, but now that you're bringing up to me, I can see that maybe they were trying to do that, and I was too dumb to see it.
Yeah, I feel like they did that a couple times. Like, that was how you could interpret the psychic thing, like you're going to be a mom or whatever. And I'm like, ugh, that would have been kind of messy. I kind of like how they did the bit with the Danish guy.
Where she kidnaps the child at the airport. Certainly, yeah. that is, yes, that was cleaner to me than mother of the club. Yes, yeah. I agree. We're in the coach's office, and Ted is reading the manuscript. And is this where Trent is like in the other room waiting for him, and he finally
staring
laughs?
Daggers.
I can't listen. You couldn't pay me money to sit in a room with someone reading something that I wrote. It would drive me bonkers. This was a great joke, though, where Ted's like, listen, I know, we're divided on police these days, but no one likes the laugh police. It was wonderful.
Trent, I mean, the delivery is just so great, where he's like on the edge of his seat, sees Ted like chuckle, and then just burst into the room. He's like, your first laugh, and it's on page 43. What's going on? It's just awesome.
It was great. It was wonderful. Okay, this is what I'd like to talk about the most. I thought it was the pub. Where are Jamie and Roy?
This is Bones and Honey, so this is the fancy pub.
Bones and Honey, not to be mistaken with Bone Thugs and Harmony, which I believe is your favorite band, but
And
I
Flower.
might be wrong. And Flower.
Bone Thugs and Harmony
Ted would be proud of that. Very good. He's rubbing off on you. Jamie and Roy are having a beer, which Jamie apparently has not had in a very long time because he drains this thing. And I can appreciate it because sometimes if you haven't had a beer in a really long time and you remember how good a beer is, and you know what beer I like to remember? Lionel Coogan's Summer Shandy.
Yes.
As the weather warms and the leaves turn and the storms roll in, sometimes it's nice to sit out in the rain and have a Lionel Coogan's Summer Shandy. Only 3 carbs and 400 calories. Lionel Coogan's Summer Shandy Light. Try it at your local convenience store in a brown paper bag. All right, that was our commercial. Hope we get paid for that one. Everything I said was wrong, by the way. Don't sue us, Lionel Coogan's. Roy tells Jamie he's proud of him. Here's what I feel like there is a self-awareness level that Roy is not showing in these last couple episodes regarding him and Keely's relationship that drove me a little bit bonkers here. And I think if we took dumb Jamie, I could forgive dumb Jamie, but I can't forgive like smart, emotionally aware Jamie that we've pitched. And this whole conversation, you know, Roy has set this up because he sees something happening between Jamie and Keely in the hallway. And so now he's trying to essentially manipulate Jamie to stay away, which Jamie very rightly is like, no, if you guys aren't official, you know, if something's not developed there and I have feelings for her, I have a right. This coming to blows, I felt was, while it was funny and there's some comedy in this, I didn't feel like where the characters got to in season 3 that this should have happened. This should have happened season 2. Like, right? Am I touching something?
It kind of did happen in season 2. So like it to come to a head again here after they've already established that they kind of had a good relationship with all 3 of them in the previous episode. Yeah, I didn't like really any of this scene. Like I take that back. I like the beginning of this where you get Roy saying like, "Hey, I'm proud of you," and then Jamie sincerely saying like, "Thank you." That he never really had older men in his life that said that to him, so it meant a lot.
Was that a dig at Roy? Older men in my life? Was that a dig at Roy? It was a very nice moment. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're right. But I mean, again, there's some good comedy and levity in that. But then when they start going back and forth, like this to me was like an old storyline of like really treating Keely like she's a prize to be won and not a person. So I'm glad like they do it very quickly where they cut back to Keely and she kind of like makes that line, "Oh, really? I get to choose?" Like kind of puts these guys in their place. I kind of like where we ended. We had talked about the relationship bits and, you know, who's she going to end up with. And that never really should have been the question. Like Keely becoming like kind of her own woman and becoming her own boss ass bee is the storyline that I wanted to watch and not necessarily who's she going to fall in love with. So I thought this was kind of clumsy. I didn't really need this. It was kind of took both these characters back to be so childish here when they seemingly grew so much throughout the series. But, you know, again, I get what the show was trying to do.
Right, where it ends up is funny, but, like, do these 2 grown men really think they're going to go to her kitchen and be like, "Hey, you have to choose"? Like, that's a very weird thing. So, you know, in the end, here's what should have happened. Roy and Keely should have ended up together and been deeply in love and raised Phoebe. Or we could all look at the example set by us, to us, from one Danny Rojas and the beautiful relationship that he seems to have developed at Stonehenge. And the 3 of them could have remained a throuple. So
I would have argued that Roy and Keely could have gotten together and they could have raised Jamie as their son.
That's Tom. This is why you do this for a living. That is an incredible take. I accept that take. I say I do to that take. I accept it, and I will live with it forever in holy matrimony. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
This has been worth however many episodes we've done of this podcast about this show. It was all worth it for that suggestion right there. I would like to retire now. You've given me everything I've ever wanted with that suggestion.
Wait, hold up. There's something that got to come out of my pockets. Pew, 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 pew. Finger guns.
I forgot you don't have any humility, so if I compliment you, the finger guns come out. I would love to watch that spinoff. It's like a Three's Company, but it's Roy, Jamie, and Keeley. That would be incredible.
Well, and I think they didn't set it up specifically for that, but I mean, the show is ripe for spinoff for sure. So, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, Danny Rojas and his Lady Loves at Stonehenge. I think that's a thing we could all get on board with, right? Guy's got incredible hair. They mentioned Trent's hair in this episode. They didn't mention Danny Rojas. Justice for Danny Rojas. Am I right? All right, Richmond, we're in the stands. Oh, this is the moment where Ted and Rebecca are supposed to have their moment. Once again, I don't want to be critical. I very much appreciated how they wrapped up. I just feel like there were a couple of things that I wanted more of, but, you know, I've never written for television, and a TV show can only do so much. It can't provide me meaning in my life, although I want it to so badly. But Ted and Rebecca are sitting in the empty stands. She's like, listen, I'm thinking about selling the team. If you go, I go. Or, and this is her like hard pitch here, hard sell, ABC, always be closing Rebecca. She's like, this is your home. Henry can come. He'll, be in the best schools. We've got Oxford and Cambridge, and she doesn't name those because Henry would never get into them. But, she's making a case for Ted. Stay here. She even brings Michelle, and I was like, I think that's where she lost Ted. She should have just been like, Michelle can be in another country with Jake, and it'd just be you and Henry. But I appreciate this. What I needed here is more from Ted. It felt like he wasn't really engaging. Go ahead. You engage. Engage, Tom.
This is what I kind of liked about this entire episode, where everybody is very emotional about saying their goodbyes. And we've seen Ted be emotional throughout this entire series. But where he is now in this decision that he has made, he is 100% sure in going back and being with his son. Like he's determined that this is what he needs in his life. And he is the least emotional person, I would argue, in this entire episode, because he is so dead set on what he needs to do. And even this whole scene, like, this is all Rebecca trying her best to convince Ted. And Ted says next to nothing in this entire sequence, which I actually kind of loved, because it just shows us so much about where he is and where Rebecca is, and how much Rebecca is such a friend to Ted and wants him to stay, and she's sad to see him go. But Ted's mind is clearly made up.
Sure, I think what I would have appreciated, because they cut out the conversation where Ted tells Rebecca he's going home, right? It's cut out of the last episode. They don't show it to us in this. They don't give us a flashback. What I would have appreciated is just Ted being like, listen, Henry is this years old. I have this many years with him. Like, I cannot send him back and forth between him and his mom. If I want to be in his life, and that's the most important thing in the world, I need to be there. And that is, like, primary to anything else in this life. Like, I think I wanted just that from him. He seemed a little bit, like, not dismissive, but just a little bit disconnected here. And Jason Sudeikis is such a wonderful actor. Hannah Waddingham is doing an incredible, like, in this episode, she's been great the whole series. She's got to be the standout. Her and, they're all great, but like her star seems to be at its pinnacle, and I hope it continues to go. But I don't know. I wanted a little bit more here. Not to say that it wasn't right or they didn't have their reasons. Since we're denied that conversation, I wanted it here, and I thought we would get it in the airport, and we still don't get it in the airport. But I see where you're coming from, where it's like, hey, Ted is resolute. He knows what's right here, so he doesn't feel the need to, I don't know, explain it to people. If that's, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but go ahead.
I think, to your point, though, I think so much of, like, Ted going back and like everybody saying, "Oh, you should stay," or Rebecca here, it doesn't take Michelle into consideration at all. Like the idea here is, I mean, they're divorced, right? So Michelle clearly has bulk custody of their kid, and we don't really know where Michelle's mindset is. So it's not like this is Ted's decision. He cannot just bring her here, like sweep her off her feet and then bring her and Henry here. It's just not that easy. And the way Rebecca is positioning this, it's like, oh yeah, just bring him here. Like that's not going to happen.
Tom, Rebecca steals a kid in the airport in this episode. How hard is it for Ted to go to Kansas City and steal a kid and bring him back through 2 airports? I mean, maybe it's doubly hard because there's 2 airports. I don't know. Doesn't seem like that hard to steal a kid and become a parent. That's what the show's taught me.
She does sell, 49% of the club. So, well, like, I don't know. Did she not get any money for it because she gives it to the fans?
No, the fans have to buy in. She's not... You think she gave that away? As her financial advisor, she should sell the horses and also sell those shares to the people. All right. She's going to, I guess, travel the world, and she's going to eat, pray, love, as Ted describes it. Or she's got a different version?
Yeah, drink, sleep, and we'll just say have fun.
Fun. The big F word, fun. We're at Keeley's house, and these 2 donkeys show up at the door. They've clearly been in a fight, which is wonderful. I like how when she opens the door, Roy goes, "He's fine." And I don't know if you caught it. Her comment was, "Did you stop a mugging?" Which was a great line. But these 2 Dumbos are like, listen, you have to choose. And they both do the aggressive lean in. Here's what I would have wanted out of this. She should have been like, all right, fine, talent show. You guys each have 10 minutes to come up with a routine. I mean, we live in America. Everything is a talent show. You either get voted off the island or voted into the lust box. I don't know. But 100% there should have been although that could have gotten weird depending on what kind of talent show. So never mind. That's a bad idea. I'd like to retract that. But I do appreciate both these guys are like, hey, there's a clear solution here. You choose. Bob's your uncle. We're out of here.
Bish bosh boosh. Whatever
Bish
Jamie says.
Bosh. He could have said it anyway, and I would have been like, oh, okay, that's an English term people use. I think that's what I'm going to miss the most. The weird British Indians and Bob's your uncles and Bish Bosh Boosh. Actually, I think that's an Amazon show about a detective. Right. Bish Bash Bosh. Anyways, I did not like... They show her closing the door on them, and they're like, we're idiots. I was like, yeah, how do we not realize we're idiots until this moment? I just felt like we dumbed them down during this episode, and I don't like to see them dumbed down because they both made strides in growth. So I thought there was a bit of regression, but, season 1, I was level 7 Lasso, and now I'm level 12 Julian, which is in the negative, so I guess people can regress.
Yeah,
digress, as you say.
There it is. This is where I think, again, the show in this season has done Keeley dirty. Like, she's just been just kind of a plaything for other characters, like bringing in Shandy, bringing in Jack, and then now having her be like the butt of the joke between Roy and Jamie. I thought it was silly. She was such a great character, and it could have been a lot of fun to see her on her own doing her own thing, but I don't think they did a great job with her character this year.
That's fair. I would argue we spent quite a bit of time with her law firm, and
but all the time we spent is not necessarily like was her story. Everything was just happening to her, and everything was just going wrong for her. Like it would have been more fun had she had signed that, or Rebecca had signed that deal with her and had a little bit more, I guess, freedom to do whatever. So I don't know. I just didn't like the Keeley stuff this year.
That's fair. They should have been solving crimes, together as a throuple. Anyways, we are in Richmond, Virginia, and Ted and Nate finally meet. Did I miss an interaction? They didn't interact the last episode, right? This scene is the big Nate and Ted reconciliation. Am I wrong on that? Am I touching something?
No, I said this at the top. This, to me, was like the most forced. Like, all of the Nate stuff this season has been super forced and super like quick. And
it's
this
so
right
funny
here,
that season 1 you were all Nate, and now we've switched. It's just funny how that's happened. Sorry, go ahead though.
no, you're right. But yeah, all this stuff, like they don't have any heart to heart. It's just, I'm saying sorry. And, and he was sincere and it was a fine enough scene, but it was just all so quick and we didn't get much from it. I do appreciate that Ted gives him a scare as he comes in. He's like, listen, I was trying to come in like a human cotton ball, but apparently he still scares the crap out of Nate.
Still scares him. So this conversation revolves around the believe sign, which they make it seem like Nate ripping up the believe sign was like the betrayal that he's sorry for. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel like that act in itself was just part of a greater betrayal. So, and the extent, once again, I enjoyed this. My nitpicks are this, and it comes down to communication. I wish this was a deeper, longer conversation where Nate explained, like, hey, this is why I did what I did. I am sorry. I see what, I ultimately pursued and what's important. And Ted's like, great. But you could take it as, like, Ted just doesn't need that. Ted's already forgiven him. Like, Ted is has seen no sin in him. And so has, already gotten there and doesn't need an explanation. But I just felt like for me as an audience member, I would have liked Nate to kind of, rather than just I'm sorry and crying, but maybe that's what happens in moments like this. I don't know. I've never apologized before. So
I think it's twofold. It's they got the big apology, which I think is kind of in reverse. They got the apology, if you will, from Beard, like that big emotional moment where Beard goes and apologizes as opposed to really Nate doing much. Like Nate, sure, he came and did the laundry for the team, but like that wasn't really much. Like it was Beard that was the one that reached out and
there's 400 guys on a team, Tom. That's 400 shirts, 400 jerseys. I don't know how many people play soccer. 800? What's the... Anyways, I see what... Yeah, go ahead.
A lot of lavender. But I think it's also that they're wanting to bring up the sign because that's going to become such an emotional beat later on in the series. So they wanted to be able to kind of tie them back to this. But I agree. The ripping of the sign is just a symptom of what happened wrong with Nate, and it would have been nice if he took a little more ownership of what he did.
The second conversation, and we'll talk about it when we get to it, is I felt the same way about the airport scene with Ted and Rebecca, where I just felt like there was more to be said. But that's fine if a show, I guess, leaves you wanting more. Is that how... that's how they're going to get me back for season 4, which I'm super stoked about. So I just was wondering whether or not this was the right conversation these two should have been having. And the conclusion I've come to is it doesn't matter because my gripes will not change what it is. So, game time. It's game time, Tom. I don't know why, but I was so pumped when the soccer of it all started. I was like, okay, deep down, as much as this show is important in terms of positivity, forgiveness, emotional awareness, it's a soccer show and sports matter, and here's why sports are important. Anyways, I was pumped for this game. And
it was great. Like the montage they do of like the crowd all coming in their Richmond best.
Yep.
And it's showing all like the characters we've seen and loved. I think we get Shannon. Like you had mentioned her. Like she was like that young woman that was always kind of seeing Ted when he was leaving his flat.
Yep.
So that was cool to see her come back and make a little cameo in the finale. You had that old couple come and sit down who were in like that rom-com episode where they were like being filmed in the stands and talking about like their marriage and everything. So it's kind of fun to see them come back. We had Michael, Colin's partner.
You mean Winona Judd?
Yeah.
You mean Winona Judd? The season ticket holder, Winona Judd.
That was good. But again, I'm with you. I got pumped for this, and it was fun to see this all play out. I felt like watching this whole thing go down, I just kept thinking, okay, they're going to win. They're going to win. It's going to be a challenging win, but they're going to win. So a lot of fun. I love what they did.
I did too. We have a quick shot of Jake from State Farm not being funny, making fun of how soccer ends in ties and no one scores and how it's boring. And he's overstayed his welcome. No one wants you, Jake. You're hideous. Your khakis and your red polo shirt, you're hideous. No one wants you here. So I just
Julian -12.
-12. I forgive you, Jake. I forgive you for being in this show. That is there. I'm Lasso level whatever.
It was good. Like I don't know if I liked this. Like I don't know where Michelle is. Like why does Michelle still have this guy in his life or in her life if he seemingly has no real relationship with Henry and she's like rolling his eyes at him in the background. I get the only idea here is just to say, okay, when Ted comes back, he has an in with Michelle. I don't really know, but he's over the top.
Yeah, for a guy that is in the house, no one seems thrilled to have him there.
Yeah.
And that's because he sounds hideous. We're at the coach's office. This is where they discuss the league names. I love it. It helped me understand none of it. I was like, wait, championship, champions, premier money. It all was confusing, but as you've pointed out, Tom, it all just comes down to how do we make more money.
Cash money,
which is good. And actually, I had questions about this, but you cleared it up at the top, so I appreciate you and your knowledge of the most beautiful game, soccer.
You're welcome.
Nate's walking in here, and he's like, "Hey, I want to wish you guys good luck." He's not awkward about it all. He's like, "This is the last time you'll ever need good luck." He kind of paints himself into a corner as if their airplane is going to go down on the way back to the U.S. But then Higgins recognizes that this is a gathering of the dog pound. And by the dog pound, I mean the Diamond Dogs. And did you see, was this the biggest surprise of the episode, Tom? What happens in this moment?
I feel like we had so many times where Roy is like teetering on the edge, and he participated in Diamond Dogs sessions throughout the season.
I thought he was a Diamond Dog at one point. I thought he got involved. Am I wrong in remembering that?
He was in the other room, like listening in, and he would like shout little things, but he wasn't like openly involved. And I guess the official entry into the Diamond Dogs is actually woofing. So the fact that he gets a rough at the end, that puts him in.
I thought you had to be invited in. It's like a vampire. You have to invite them into your home. They can't.
No, that's Rupert.
Oh, yeah, Rupert and his cape. Anyways, Roy's like, "Can I be a big double D, a Diamond Dog?" And they let him in, but not before everyone checks for cameras. I was a little bit confused by what everyone was doing, and then Ted explained it. And I was
they were all in on the gag, which was pretty good. Yeah. Every single one of them was doing the same bit.
Oh, and we have a moment from Roy, which once again is very lovely, but we're late in season 3, man. Like, I don't think there's many more episodes left, and so we have Roy saying, like, "Listen, I've tried to change," and we have seen change in Roy. We have seen strides in Roy, but he's like, "I am still me," and he has come to the position of, can people change? And Tom, I'd like to ask you this question. Can people change? Do people change? And how difficult is it to steal a child at an airport? Those are my questions to you.
No, and very easy.
That's two people that met in an airport. I find that not at all surprising.
I liked the back and forth here. I liked that Trent was kind of the first kind of one to chime in, saying, I don't think people can really change per se, and then it brings in Nate, which I liked. I like because Nate, we have seen an arc with him, and he's saying, like, no, people can change. Sometimes they can change for the worse and the better, which we saw in his arc, so I appreciated that. But I feel like all of this is ultimately just to get to Higgins' line, which I think was beautiful and poignant. The idea of, like, if you keep asking for help and accepting it when you can, you always move towards better, which I thought was brilliant. Like, nobody's perfect. They got that good banter back and forth about all the different things that are perfect, which was really good. I appreciate Beard, like, leading that and constantly having the last word of what is perfect. And
sure.
It's like art.
That was great.
But yeah, beautiful line, and I like where they ended here, but definitely not the path we've seen for Roy.
Right. He's like, there are perfect things, but not perfect people. It was great with Beard. But to your point, it is a wonderful message. And I do think it is important because a lot of times in life we're like, oh, if we do this, this will have like a drastic effect. But because we're all human, every change is like extremely gradual and takes a lot of work. And so, yeah, I do like the ultimate message. I just felt that we've digressed, Roy, a little bit. And the word of this podcast today is digress. So,
okay, the definition for digress: leave the main subject temporarily in speech or writing.
Yeah, we've been using it, right?
Okay.
I think we could have gotten away with it had you not outed us with a definition, Tom.
Oh, man, my wife would have destroyed me.
Oh, that's right. That's right. She's a wordsmith. Yeah, she's a wordsmith. All right. We have Rupert and the old manager. We'll just call him Balls. I don't remember his name. He's... I like that they kept this actor around. They were like, listen, can you show up and do this today? And he's like, sure, I'm game. How short are the shorts? They're like pretty short. He's like, awesome, I'm there. And did we know that it was going to, I think we talked about this. Hey, is the last game of the season going to be West Ham? And did we know it was going to be? Or was it just implied?
I think we knew they were going to play them twice. I think they mentioned in the beginning, and I'm sure there was some throwaway line at some point that maybe we just overlooked or missed. But yeah, the idea of them playing in the finale was poetic.
Sure. We have Rupert talking with Buffy, and he's wearing his long, dark coat that makes him just very dashing. Looks great.
It's so he can walk in the daylight.
Right. Yes, because he's a vampire. Good point. Two people that have never seen Buffy, so if we've got our details wrong, we don't care. We're not going to watch it. Actually, Tom and I will have an announcement. We're cutting in right here after the Lionel Coogan's ad. The next show Tom and I will be watching and talk about is every episode of Buffy, the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, but we're going to watch every single episode
and do one
and then
pod.
do one pod.
Here's how it goes. Yeah, it was fine, I guess. A little dated. I got confused in season 5, but yeah, overall, I wouldn't watch it again. Anyways,
7.5 hour podcast.
We made a lot of enemies right there. But as long as those enemies aren't vampires, even if they are, when they show up to your house, Tom, they can't come in unless you invite them. That's a rule. Lovely moment with Sassy. I appreciate, once again, they brought everyone back. Sassy gets some Rupert back and forth. And she's like, I wish you the best. Because you are the worst. And great. I will say the guy that plays Rupert, I'm sure he's like lovely in real life. He plays a great Rupert. Like he did a phenomenal job in this episode. He's done a phenomenal job the whole series. And I feel like this is a guy that unfortunately is going to be painted into the Rupert corner. And so every time you see him, you're going to have a negative reaction. But I'm sure in real life, he's a lovely, lovely human.
Can I ask here, the idea of him kind of going full villain, when I feel like, was the last episode or the episode before this where they seemed to give Rupert a little bit of like heart or humanity with his back and forth with Rebecca.
Yeah,
when Rebecca kind of saying when he was first the owner of the team and really loved him. I was kind of surprised that they immediately turned full heel again and made him just an absolute villain with really no depth.
Right. Well, I think he's a layered human, so he's got a lot of depth, as most vampires do. I think what you're referring to is that Akufu League episode where we see him like remember what it was like to care about a team and cheer for a team, and he sides with Rebecca instead of just going for more money. And so, yes, I think this just comes down to the guy's a competitor, you know? He wants his team to win. Even though Rebecca does point out, she's like, either way, you win because you own one team. And I don't know. This was a strange, but what other conflict? Like, we needed a bad guy, I think. And, you know, Rupert has just been that bad guy. So was it surprising? Did I feel like they needed to call him a wanker a bunch of times as he left? No. I don't think they should have. But, yeah, I see where you're getting at, but who else do we have? You know, Nate's back. There's no other enemy, Tom.
It closes out his arc, I think, rather poetically because he was just the absolute worst in season 1, and you see how Rebecca's changed and her attitude towards him. So, again, I think they do some fun stuff with him and making him a villain, but I was just kind of surprised a little bit by how heavy they went with really destroying him this episode.
Sure, that's fair. It was unnecessary. Justice for Rupert. Tom, you heard it here. Tom loves Rupert, wanted the best for him, thought he was a great owner, should own both teams. Tom's words. He said those. Write it on social media. Let's cancel him, folks.
We went long again, so we're going to go ahead and split this finale into 2 parts. This is the end of part 1. We will be doing part 2 and releasing that here very shortly. If you'd like to follow us on social media, you can reach us at Team Binge or Team Binge Podcast on Instagram or Twitter, or you can always reach us at our Gmail account at teambingepodcast@gmail.com. And we'll see you guys here shortly for part 2 of the finale.